Hey everybody, Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast. And today's guest is Drew Hicks, the owner of Central Avenue Meats. Super excited about this episode. He's going to talk about his amazing relationship with the McCafferty Ranch and how he takes part in feeding not only our community, but quite possibly in the future, our entire country with the amazing things that they're doing and the amazing things that he's going to do here in the future. This is an exciting episode of how we bring agriculture from farm to table. In fact, during this episode, we're going to eat a couple of his ribeyes and we're going to talk about it. It's going to be a great show with lots of good information, and I'm super excited about it. Stand by.
69 foot pursuit. Stop! Stop! Stop!
Hi, Drew.
Hey, Jesse.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
I am super excited about this episode. Super excited.
Let's hope
Dude,
it pays
there's
off.
steaks in front of us.
There is
Yes!
steaks in front of us. I mean, how much better can this? This is going to be one of the most American episodes ever.
Right on.
Yeah.
I was going to say two native Montanans, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely doing what we do. And we're going to get into that. But I'll say grace real quick before we eat, and then we'll eat on here. So we'll take our heads off. All right. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for this wonderful food. Thank you for Drew Hicks and his amazing business, and the McCafferys for their amazing beef. And thank you for Tim for doing all the editing and recording this amazing episode. Thank you in your name, and bless hands that prepared this. Amen.
Amen.
So, super excited about this. So excited that we made sure we had steaks on the episode. I can't wait. So, I guess why we start to eat here. I guess what I want to know is talk to me about where'd you grow up?
So I am a Geraldine native.
Oh, no
Geraldine,
way.
Montana, the mighty Tigers.
Yes.
Just actually probably about an hour from the door here. I grew up on a farm and ranch between Geraldine and Fort Benton. I guess a third generation farm, and just really happy to be from there. I appreciate it more all the time the longer I've traveled around, the more time I spend in bigger places. I really am appreciative that I got to grow up there.
So you said you grew up on a farm and ranch there?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
About 1,000 acres, about 500, half and half, pasture and farmland.
Okay.
And yeah, just had a tough as nails dad, and my mom was a music teacher from Detroit. So nothing typical.
No,
I guess,
not typical at all.
But again, just love the fact that I got to experience small town Montana and kind of the innocence, the relative innocence that presented for itself. Being able to grow up there, know everybody in the community, and probably will get into a little bit more of that. But I think that really has really affected what I want to do in Great Falls.
So does your family still have the ranch?
They do.
Do they? That's
Yep.
awesome.
Mom and dad have both passed, so I'm an only child.
Oh,
And
me too.
it is. I'm kind of in the process of slowly trying to fix it up and improve some of the things out there. But I go out there about once a week, every couple of weeks, and it's just nice. It's quiet out there.
Yeah.
Nearest neighbor is like, got my aunt's house is very close, but then the next nearest neighbor is like 5 miles away, or 3 miles away, and so it's really nice to get out. The dichotomy of downtown Great Falls and just the hustle and bustle that's going on down there, and then just being out in the middle of nowhere to a certain degree is
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
That's amazing. I think that area of, all of Choteau County is a really, really beautiful, beautiful place. But particularly like that area, man, it's super amazing out there. And it's still super unpopulated, super untouched, and it's not crazy. Like I know land prices everywhere are going way up, but it's not it's not like some of the other counties and places. So it's kind of still uniquely just Montana.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of fun. There's a lot of my friends my age have moved back to either farm or ranch or own businesses in the local community there, and yeah, it really feels like people are there. There's more. There's been kind of a resurgence in local buy-in down there, as far as people understanding that if you want community, you kind of have to contribute to that. You have to make it, and it's just kind of a trip seeing people my age now running the concessions at sporting events or different things. That was always somebody else's parents doing that. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
But
That's
now
awesome.
now when I'm talking to one of my friends about, what are we, can we get some pork butts for pulled pork or something? It's because they realize that, hey, if you want to have sandwiches at concessions, you got to make them.
That's
that kind
awesome.
of thing.
That's so awesome. I've spent quite a bit of time up in that area, and if I could get my wife to move out there, obviously I won't live out there now because of my current job, but someday that whole area, it's just so amazing and so kind of untouched. And so what was your childhood like? Were you a normal, like, farm and ranch kid, get up in the morning, do chores type of thing, or?
A little bit. So my dad was an older guy. He was actually born in 1934. Okay. So he, grew up right at the end of the Great Depression, that kind of thing, to a family of, he was this, I believe the fifth sibling out of six.
Wow.
I'd have to do the math. But they had kind of a, it was very typical, I think, but it was a very, not rough upbringing. Like he had a good dad and a good mom and stuff, but you had to scrap.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So he started herding. One of his stories he'd tell, among many, he had a lot of interesting stories, but he started herding sheep at age 6, working full days.
Wow.
And he, I believe on his first day, was stalked by a coyote. And so after he went into lunch on the first day that he was doing this and told his dad, like, I'm going to have to carry a rifle. So you're 6 years old, first day of work, just, it was just accelerated maturity. You gotta grow up fast. And so he didn't necessarily get like a huge childhood, I guess, or, in a sense. And I think,
or you could argue had an amazing childhood in a way, depending on what you're into.
Correct. Yeah. I think he would have probably, just based on what he did with me, I think that he tried to give me a little bit of the childhood he didn't have.
Right.
And so I had it a little easier than some of my friends, like some of my friends were driving combine at age 8, like doing whatever. And I was kind of into middle school before I really started doing the farm work side of it. But when it started to happen, we were out feeding cows in, -20. Mm-hmm. Like I definitely have that love-hate relationship with cold weather, right. More than anything else. But
right.
But still got enough of a foundation there to, thankfully give me some work ethic down the line, and to really appreciate working with your hands, and also just to get to experience, even as a kid out there, you kind of have to entertain yourself. Like mm-hmm. You're just out here, was lucky enough to be still in a generation and lived in a place where you just get kicked outside during the day.
Yeah. Well, and one of the best parts about being an only child is, I didn't grow up on a farm. We had a little ranch when I got in high school, but one of the best parts about being an only child is you have to have a great imagination and the willingness to just go try things, because you don't have these peer brothers and sisters that are teaching you, hey, this is what I did, check this out, Yep. And so you have to be able to kind of like imagine your own world, because a lot of times you're on your own, yep. With your peer group, is
yeah.
what I mean by that.
No, I remember because we've got this big gravel road, or this gravel road that goes up kind of a bigger hill. And just remember a lot of summer days where it was just like you ride your bike, you either walk or ride your bike up this hill, and you just ride down. Then you walk or ride your bike up the hill, and then just ride down. And that was like a day. And just playing with the dog, just the dog's chasing you around, and you're just roaming the entire time. And like you're saying, just entertaining yourself. But I remember one day just taking a massive spill on my bike and kind of getting folded up in it. And there's been a couple moments in my life growing up out there a few times during adolescence that you really just, fall down, start crying, and then realize, well, no one's coming to get me.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
And so then, you just, you have it out and you freak out and you get over it. And then you are forced to, there is that independent and kind of self-reliance that if it is maintained in a healthy way, is kind of nice being an only child.
Absolutely.
I definitely, again, had parents that were looking out for me, and I think they did it. They tried to maintain a pretty good balance between discipline and my dad was from that tougher generation. I think he tried to give me a little bit of an easier road than he had. But every day I see things. First of all, you kind of feel yourself becoming your father.
Yeah.
And so I'll say something or think something and be like, "That's Don Hicks right there." But I think they really tried to instill and did a lot of discipline in me that has paid more benefits the more that I listened to the lessons that they told me, which is probably not that unique, but
I think being an only child gets a bad name.
Yeah.
You've ever heard people and they're like, "Oh, you're an only child," and it's like it's this sense that you're selfish or you got spoiled because you were the only kid. But I don't think there probably is a little bit of that that's true. But I also believe too, not having brothers and sisters, not having there's a lot of things you just had to figure out on your own because you're like I'm a parent of 3 and I'm going to just tell you right now, I'm irrelevant in my kids' eyes. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know anything. And so you stop listening to your parents a little bit. Well, the only choice when you're an only child is to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about being an only child that I always found, I don't know if you found it too, is that you tend to be able to relate to adults a lot quicker because a lot of times that's all that's around you. You don't have,
I've never really thought about that. But that makes a lot of sense. I was thinking the other day, I've got some, just by proximity that my dad was older, I have older cousins, older aunts and uncles,
Right.
Everybody is just kind of at an older age comparatively. And was just thinking about how, certainly it's a topic to get into as far as how our society either rightly or wrongly kind of treats older people in the society, compared to other societies. But Absolutely. I did grow up a lot around, you just go to like an uncle's house and there was no tablets or anything at that point. You're just like, okay, entertain yourself, but don't break anything. Don't touch anything. Don't, but just kind of being around adults all the time.
It was more like this. It was like entertain yourself. There's certain things you can play with. Don't touch the guns.
Yep.
Because when you grow up as a kid, back when we grew up, there's lever action 30-30s in every corner of the house sitting on tables.
Yep.
It's not like today. It's just totally different. And,
No.
you didn't touch them and you knew not to touch them and you just did your thing.
Oh yeah. And the idea, I do think that maybe with some of our friends now and our friends' kids, I guess being in the right frame, a little bit more buddy with the kids.
Yeah.
But growing up like that, it was like, any adult could discipline you.
Oh yeah.
It was the parenting by village.
Absolutely. Well, and then if another adult, whether it was a uncle, aunt, teacher, it didn't matter. If they whooped your ass, your parents were just like, yeah, tough. I guess you should have listened.
Yeah.
There was
the first question was, what did you do?
Exactly. Yeah. You were guilty till proven innocent. And even once you proved yourself, and let's say you proved yourself innocent, they didn't care. They were just like, yeah, well, probably shouldn't have done what you did.
Yeah. You next time, if you're going to be innocent, be somewhere else innocent.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, it was, just you bringing that up, I think it is interesting to see. I know that's one of the critiques of maybe younger generations is that they, especially if they're not involved in a lot of social situations or, as we talk about, maybe the effects of the last 3 years has been people not knowing how to relate to others, especially people in other age gaps.
Absolutely.
It is just funny to think about just going to an older relative's or really any, because my mom was involved in, it was called the Republican Women, but it was like a social group or whatever in Fort Benton. And I would just go, she taught music lessons too for on a certain day of the week in like a 4 or 5 hour block. And I would just go with her and sit there.
listen to all of them talk.
You can read a book,
or
you can, again, you can entertain yourself, but you better not be loud. You better not.
Don't interrupt.
Your list of activities within entertaining yourself was pretty restrictive.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's again that having to learn that discipline, I guess, and
absolutely. And respect too.
Yeah. But, and that comfort with the older, and being able to. At the time, I wouldn't say I appreciated it, but even more now, I appreciate, thinking about sitting down with some of the people and what they had seen.
Yeah.
And also understanding that they wanted to be around younger people and try to pass those things on. It at the time I wasn't a fan. I mean, I would have rather played with my friends, but I'm really glad that my parents exposed me to that.
Yeah.
Is anybody else going to comment on how amazing these steaks are? I mean, seriously. So, Drew, you got the steaks. Jesse, you did a really good job cooking it.
I was going to say, the cook gets the credit.
But even the fat tastes good. My wife is like, I don't want any fat in my steak. And I'm like, you need a little bit, This is great.
I cut a big chunk of mine off for my wife. She's working right now. She works from home. And so I whacked a big piece off my steak, and I got a text from her right before I walked in. She's like, "This is so delicious."
It's really good, dude. And your gorgonzola sauce is a winner.
Yeah,
I'm taking that home.
Butter gorgonzola. It is the secret. It's where I got this from was a 3D.
Oh, really?
3D does it on their ribeyes. So that's where I got it from. I stole it. So I'll give 3D all the credit.
Wow. Boy, you talk about 2006, my senior year, the 3D was the mythical place where if you were lucky to go there and as a high school boy, just challenge the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Oh, yeah. 3D is like an institution here. 3D and Boris, and those are the old school.
I'm glad that Great Falls still has those places.
Me too.
There's definitely no ill will towards any of the chain restaurants that come in. Nope. I think there's absolutely a place for those.
Absolutely.
But I love the local loyalty to those places, and have worked at some places that when I worked at the slaughterhouse in Vaughan, we did some of the meat for Boris.
Yeah. And
it's just fun to know that they're shopping locally too.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see that cycle.
So I'm going to get there because I want to talk a lot about that here in a minute. But what I want to do is what did you do in high school? Did you play sports? Did you do anything like that, or what were you into?
I did. Yeah. In Geraldine, if you were a guy, you were on the football team in some capacity, which when we're talking about discipline was very good for me.
Right.
Because just being a smaller guy and, for the first part of playing, being kind of afraid to get hit, that kind of thing, maybe being a little bit more timid in that regard. I think if I'd been in a bigger environment where I could have only done the things that I wanted to do, I would have.
Right.
But no, I mean, we played 6-man football, and I think everybody, most of my school years, maybe my senior year, everybody, one person in the high school that was a guy, a male, was on the football team, and then the other person was the manager.
Yeah.
So did that, played for a guy named Rod Tweet, who's kind of a legendary coach in Montana sports, and got to experience my sophomore year. We won the state title. I didn't have much to do with that, but
That's awesome.
I got to see, just had another really important figure in my life as far as somebody who, coached me and didn't always tell me what I wanted to hear and didn't coddle me, but also didn't, tried to pull something more out of me as a human being. And I think I'm still paying dividends for that too. But anyways, played football and kind of grew to like it towards my turned out that if you initiate contact, it feels better than
Then if you receive it, yes.
But yeah, played basketball, didn't run track, was heavily involved in music with my mom being a music teacher. She taught me piano early, and then a few other instruments. Even, when you're in a household like that, I had to practice for TV time. So if you practiced for an hour, you got an hour of TV.
Music is great though. Music.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and music also makes you. There's like studies about it makes you more intelligent and everything. I mean, it's a great skill.
Well, hopefully I don't negate any of those studies. But it is fun, and it again I can see I think for me a lot of growing up, my parents were very intelligent, both of them. My dad, even though he was a rancher, he actually received, I think it's 3 U.S. patents. Wow. So he had 3 patents.
What for?
And one was a gopher bait station, so for poisoning gophers.
Yeah.
And he actually had some of them produced, and then right around that time, they increased the restrictions on what you could use to poison gophers. Like there was a little bit more liability, I think. Sorry.
You're good. We got to talk with our mouths open right now. It's just the way it goes.
Oh, but it's so good. I'm okay with this. I'm trying to do this over here and not get sticky stuff all over the keys over here. And I'm like, this is so good.
Well, again, the cook gets the credit.
I gave you napkins, Tim.
Did you really though? Are you sure about that? I'm going to make you second guess it just to make you wonder if you did.
I did.
But yeah, he did. So a gopher bait station. He did an attachment to combines that made the chaff coming out the back. It had something to do with the windrows that the combines produced.
Really?
I don't remember as many details about that, but I remember one of my first jobs was assembling these kits that he was selling. They were like an attachment you can install on a combine.
Right.
And there are probably still some in the basement out at the house somewhere. I'm sure that I will come upon them. But his big one that almost took off was an adaptation of cow ear tag design. And again, I wish I had been older, but he, it's funny saying this out loud. He got pretty close to having a big breakthrough with that. And then there was some kind of a corporate, I know my dad's side of the story was that someone kind of stole his idea. Oh, and wow. I remember him going to court in North Dakota, like as part of a lawsuit for it. But anyways, I'm fairly sure that one was pretty close and was incorporated in some way into like larger designs. And
so do you still have those cow ear tags?
I know that in a safe somewhere out there, he has all the patent paperwork. So he got that design patented. And
those need to be in the butcher shop.
I need to pull.
You need to like blow those up and put those in there. I mean, think about it. You're a butcher in the Golden Triangle, and your dad patented a cow ear tag. I mean, in the
It's true.
gopher poisoning and something for a combine. You got to have those like hung up on the wall up there.
But isn't that the point, though? I mean, think about it. All these farmers found fixes for everything they did.
yeah.
Yep.
That's the point. They were all inventors. They are still all inventors.
Absolutely. My grandfather was a big ag guy, and he could tie anything together with baling twine. Anything.
Yep.
You know.
Duct tape for men would be baling wire for him.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah, but he did that. He was a published poet. He wrote some poetry.
Wow.
And then one of the things that has kind of fascinated me more as I've gotten older was he used to draw cartoons, and he would actually
I know a guy does that.
he would actually go.
My kind of guy.
I was going to say this is probably mid 70s, but he would go to local bars like up in Lincoln or come to bars up here and sell them in bars. Like if you think of that being kind of an older, just generational thing.
Are you kidding? That's crossed my mind even now.
I mean, it's cool though. It's
Oh yeah.
but
That's a great idea.
But yeah, they were both. My mom and dad were very learned. I remember them having like debates over words, and then they'd look it up in a dictionary or something like that. But they kind of set me up for success as far as like made me read a lot growing up, all that.
Right.
And so my struggle, especially in my high school years, was just kind of coasting. You know, again,
Right.
a typical human temptation, but.
High school is so hard though. You're going through so many different things in your life. You know, I mean, you're just usually you're like just coming out of the whole puberty thing. If you're a man, you've got testosterone, and now all of a sudden girls become super attractive in high school, and then there's football and basketball, all these sports, and it's the most distracting environment for young. Well, we'll just say men because we don't know the women perspective. For young men who do not need distraction,
Yep.
and then they expect you to like, oh, well, you know, you need to be a 4.0 student in academics, and it's like, well, yeah, that's not a priority for a young man.
No,
it's just not.
Well, and I think one of the things that's maybe more personal for me compared to some of my friends has been just really fighting back against the temptation of, I guess, laziness in a sense. I think one of the things that's maybe, I'm glad that there wasn't more of this when I was growing up because I certainly would have been attracted to it, but more of the promise of automation or social media jobs where you're not working with your hands. Like
Big tech. Yeah.
For me, it's been like kind of the circling back to finding a lot of joy in working with my hands and doing something so tactile as butchering. When for so long, all I wanted to do was kind of get away from that and work in more of kind of the cleaner corporate, having more aspirations about getting office type jobs and really now being really thankful that I'm able to do what I do and feel that satisfaction.
You said you graduated in 06?
Yep.
So yeah, so that would have been really big then. That would have been kind of the height of the whole big tech thing. And it was like everywhere in the media, like you can go get these, it was kind of this false hope that there was these.
Become a programmer, you're going to succeed.
These several $100,000 a year jobs.
Right.
Remember, they used to show like the shots at Google, and they'd be sitting in their little space age chairs on their laptops. And I've been to, what's the one in Reading? Microsoft. Mm-hmm. I've actually been to their campus, and it's like this. It's weird. It's this.
Rather. Got to hit the right button. Rather occultic, isn't it? Just slightly with the way.
Yeah, your mic's still not on.
Are you serious? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. No, yeah, it's. I don't know if it's cult. It's just. It's not reality of anything that I've ever grown up with in Montana.
Right.
Like you go there, and it's like a college campus, which is kind of fun, you know. But like you'll literally go into rooms, and they have these like steamed over windows, these like frosty windows, you know, because they're doing classified video games in there, which is just, you know, tech for we don't want anybody else to steal our video game idea. And,
cow tags, it would come in handy there.
Yeah, exactly. So But it was. I mean, I actually took my wife to that one too, and I took her on the campus and walked her around, and I mean, just all the different like fancy, hoity-toity foods and everything. They had food courts everywhere, and the people that worked there are just like, sipping lattes and typing on their laptops, and you look at it and you go, it's like, I can see why, especially to a young man who, I graduated in 95, so anywhere between our ages, that stuff was really attracting. I mean, because you thought, oh, it's easy. You just, you do whatever you do on your laptop at work, and some people work from home, and it's super easy, and you make tons of money, and then the reality of those jobs is they're super competitive. A lot of people get laid off. A lot of people get fired. It's super hard to get into them, and most of the people I saw weren't even, I don't want to say, they weren't from this country.
Well, and secondhand to that, I mean, and that's actually a better point than what I was going to make. But if you talk to some of the gamer developers and things like that, they are working some of the hardest situations where they're sleeping under their desks. Their overtime is ridiculous. The amount of what they thought was going to be the cushy job never plays out the way that it's supposed to, ever.
Well, nothing does if you want to be successful.
True story.
You know what I mean? If you want to actually be
hard
good,
work is the success.
If you want to be good at it, you got to put in the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I think I still feel like it's changing a bit. I think, but certainly even in the Gap, I know that Mike Rowe has made a career, and rightfully so,
guy.
of pointing out that for a long time the trade jobs were marketed as kind of loser jobs,
right?
And that you were settling for something less if you found yourself in the trades. And
when I was so sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
no.
I really want to make this point. When I grew up in Los Angeles as a kid, it wasn't Los Angeles then, it was a little cow town. But when I grew up, though, the teachers were already saying things like, well, you'll never amount to anything but a plumber. You'll never amount to anything but a carpenter. They were saying that to me when I was a kid. So in my psyche, it was like, these jobs are bad. And I had those jobs in college. I built pole barns and floors and did all sorts of different things like that. And they were great jobs. There's nothing wrong with that job.
The money is great in those jobs.
Well, and not only that, you're learning a craft.
Yes.
You're learning something. I mean, it's a lot of the jobs I had, I didn't learn anything. You don't learn it. I mean, and I'm not making fun of people who wash dishes because God bless them, we need them, but you don't learn a lot of skills washing dishes.
Yep.
But you certainly do when you're building something or you're creating something.
I think everyone should at least try a restaurant job as a kid, and then also a hard work labor job as a kid.
Absolutely.
And kind of get the taste of both. That way, when you do find your other job, you know what you know what a real man is doing.
But it's funny now, full circle to where we are today. And if you're a plumber, I mean, I know people who are in the trades, and they're plumbers, they're electricians, and some of them are dating women half their age because they're the ones who are making the world go round right now. You know what I mean? They've got it going on. They're driving the Ford Raptor $150,000 truck because that's how much actual cash flow they have coming in. And this was something that when you and I grew up as kids, people were trying to say, oh, you don't want to do that.
They're the ones living on the nice hill. They're the ones living in the nice houses around Great Falls.
Yeah, someone told me a couple of years ago that they're like, who's building up at Holter right now? The plumbers.
Yeah.
True story.
And the welders.
Yeah.
And those are the guys. And really, again, as things get, I guess if the economy gets tighter or whatever, and you start having to examine what in your budget is necessary and what's not, running water and like a toilet that works starts to move up the list.
Heat.
Yeah.
We live in Montana. Yep. That's one of the things that scares me the most is like we lose heat here. We're done.
Yeah.
It gets so cold here.
And those, I mean, what's there's a million things. I'd love to hear. I'm glad that you worked those jobs because I didn't. I stayed away from those jobs, and luckily, the Lord has kind of led me back into this. I almost feel like I'm a more vocal proponent of the trades because I tried so hard to get away from them and was really unsatisfied and unfulfilled.
Well, let's not say that I worked those jobs like as in I was like I mean I had these were like a few summers. It wasn't like a big deal, but I remember here's what bothered me about it. I can still remember feeling like I was less because I was working that job than if I'd gotten some cool work study job working at like the Museum of the Rockies and
Sure.
looking at astrophysics and dinosaurs. I mean, those were when you got into that world of kind of like academia, it was like, oh, well, that's all below us. And, when I was going to college and stuff, it was, and it's terrible. I look back on it now and I mean, it's embarrassing. You're like, oh my gosh, people thought like that. And now you see it and everything's come full circle. And now, like the career you're in as a butcher, I mean, there's so few and far between. And the way that you do it, with the storefront and the physical location and the fact that it's a physical location that's pleasant to go into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very pleasant in there. When my wife and I first went in there, when you guys opened up, I was like, okay, this is clean. This is nice. The storefront sets a good look for downtown. Absolutely loved it. Well, absolutely.
I thought I was super excited. I thought it was a steakhouse. No, because you did such a good job with the like facade. So
no kidding.
I was like, oh, a new steakhouse, and I go running in there, and I'm like, oh. But I wasn't disappointed.
I have to cook my own steak.
It wasn't.
There's a lot of places.
I wasn't disappointed. It was like twofold. It was like you were like, I was totally not expecting this, but I've never seen anything like this. So it was both. So real quick before we go into that, because we got like 6 different ways we can go on this. Yeah. So you're in high school. What do you do after you graduate?
So was lucky enough to still be growing up at a time where they did the in-state valedictorian scholarship.
Okay.
So what was funny was my best friend and I were both finished in Geraldine, kind of at the top, and we took the ACT, and he just smoked me on one and beat me by 4 or 5 points. And then we took it again, and I was able to beat him by 1 point. And so at that time, what that meant is I got free in-state tuition. And it didn't really matter how big your class was. Every valedictorian got an in-state, as long as you're going to an in-state school, you got free tuition.
Wow.
So I went to Missoula. That kind of dictated that I wanted to stay in state. And got a marketing degree. So did a 4-year degree.
Nice.
Still with the intention of going to work in a high-rise somewhere in a big city.
Right.
Be far away from the dirt in Geraldine.
Yeah.
And it was really. Subsequently, after getting out of college, was very. There was kind of that rude awakening to how competitive that industry was, and what, how many other people had gotten that degree, and how maybe vague that degree is. I learned some great things through it, things I used at the shop. But when you're trying to submit, an application for a marketing job, you just don't have something tactile,
Right.
If you're wanting to be a butcher or a plumber, can you fix this?
Right.
Here are the tools, show me. So many of those marketing jobs, other things in that essence are, I have this great idea, or,
right.
they're so ethereal that it's a little tough to and kind of frustrating in a way.
Well, and they're also largely based on relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're largely based on knowing somebody who has a business or who did something with their hands to create something, and then you are there to market their stuff. And that's the hard part, is like, that's the one thing that frustrates me about college so bad, that and I'm not an anti-college person, so I don't want to come across like this. I'm not a believer in going to college unless you really know what you want to do. I think that's a waste of time and money.
Agreed.
But I think that one of the negative things about college is they give you this false hope that if you get this piece of paper, it's going to solve all your problems. And I remember being told that I would never make any substantial amount of money or lead a decent life unless I got a college degree. I mean, that was pounded into me in the 90s. Just like, what do you want to do? You back to our conversation, you just want to be a plumber? You want to go be a butcher? What do you want to do? I mean, it was like this negative connotation towards anything else. And, even law enforcement, they were like, oh, so you're going to roll around in the street with people, and it was this, and I think it was the post Cold War, when Reagan defeated the Russian world that we lived in, was everything was a utopia and everything was going to be clouds in the skies for a while. When right around this, I mean, you at least grew up post 9/11 in the fact that went through high school and stuff post 9/11, but before 9/11, it was even worse. I mean, it was like very snobby and prestigious, I remember I dated a girl one time in college, and super nice girl. This isn't her fault, but her family like just totally looked down their nose at me, like, because I think they had like brother was a Harvard grad, and, all this other stuff, and it was all like, that was the world though. It was like, oh, academia is going to solve all your problems, and a lot of the degrees and a lot of the things that people were chasing weren't really, they were substantive maybe for a brief moment in time, but they weren't sustaining. Where I know people who are like marketing geniuses, and some of them barely have graduated high school.
Yeah.
But they're great at marketing. They just, because it's kind of an instinctual thing.
It is inherent. Like, it's something that if you just worked at a job, you would learn a lot of the things that I learned in college. Just a lot of it, it's probably like a lot of things where it's just conceptual, it's common sense. You find the customers that appeal to you, you find what you're best at, you find the people that are looking for what you're best at, and you try to connect those dots. I think it's interesting what we're talking about, because it is about striking a balance between, I certainly grew up around there in a smaller minority was kind of that anti-intellectual, like there were a few people in the Geraldine area who maybe were, if you tried to do anything arts-wise, it would have been like, oh, you think you're, you think you're something. That was much more of a minority opinion, but trying to find a balance between kind of the arts and then also the tactile things that we need to survive, and the balance between that is one of those balances that has become a lot more interesting to me, and it's something that I look at now. I've got two small kids, a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and just trying not to go too hard on either direction, avoiding the extremes, but also really wanting, because I didn't put enough stock in it growing up, is wanting my son to have a very clear appreciation for working with his hands, and to also feel things that I think you can only get through that, whether you're doing it professionally or doing it on the side along with more of a office type job.
Both things are important.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, is like people they forget that. And I mean, if you think about it, if you look at things like ranching and agriculture, there's an art form to that.
Yes.
I mean, I know lots of agriculture guys who can look up at the sky and go, okay, this is what we got going on today. And this is, they know things inherently just from watching. I mean, they'll be in tune with the weather. Some of them are super in tune with their livestock. I mean, they just know. They're like, okay, this year, this is what's going to likely happen. And that's an art form. That's not yes, they got there with their hands, but they learned it through the same processes that people learn in art, watching, seeing patterns and seeing what looks right.
Yeah.
And so they're both important. It's just our balance is kind of out of whack of what we prioritize. And it just seems like we lose it. I mean, I know that I need music and art to get away from things. Like that's how I meditate, decompress, unplug, and it's super healthy. We need all those things. But prioritizing really one over the other is, I think, a big mistake.
Yeah, it certainly, I think you and I probably both, judging by some of the emphasis that we put on the tactile trade type jobs, there's still that imbalance towards away from the trades. And it does seem like it's getting a little bit better. Maybe. I mean, I am working around people in trades, so I'm more inundated with it on a day-to-day basis. But
it's getting better. My almost 16-year-old daughter said something to me the other day, and she was talking about something about her boyfriend and what he was going to do, and she's like, "Yeah, he's going to go work in the trade so he can make money." And here she is, and I mean, she's not around that. My wife and I both work in government. We don't work in the trades. But she's looking at the world and she sees this and she recognizes it. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, this is how you're going to make a living, is you're going to do this stuff. And I thought it was really funny. And I was like kind of thrown back by it, but in a positive way, in a positive way.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, now that my dad has passed, I have to go to other older guys that I know through church or through the community. And, I'm kind of making up for lost time. Like, what do I do if my furnace isn't working? Or what do I do to build a fence? Or, these are things that when you don't learn them right off, they're parts of life that you're going to have to catch up with. And,
absolutely.
And also it's just everything that you learn that way, and you start to have this self-confidence of like, oh, I can do this. If this goes wrong, I can make sure that my family has heat or running water or whatever.
It's so empowering too.
Yeah, there's a kind of a quiet confidence in knowing that. And being able to help out other people in your community too.
My biggest problem, if someone wants to show me the key to finding the stud in the wall, I just like to know that. I even have the little stud finder thing, and I'll still miss it.
Me
so
too.
yeah, if I that's the secret to life right there.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
Finding the stud.
If you can find. My wife's gonna have so many good comments about this segment.
Sheesh. Leave it in the comments below if you watch this later.
So we're gonna get out of your transition to college here into the workforce in a second, but we're gonna take a quick break. Your health journey is as unique as you are. The Peak Great Falls has everything you need for your fitness journey. They are your partner in wellness with a top-notch facility and expert staff and a very welcoming vibe. Locally owned, community driven. Join them today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, one cup and one bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. You go to college in Missoula. Did you have, by the way, we didn't even talk about the most important thing. Did you have fun?
At college?
Yeah.
A little too much fun.
Much fun?
No, it was good. It was, looking back at the experience, it was kind of my first, it was, your independence. So I'm away from home. I'm away from parents that I think did a very good job of kind of keeping an eye on me. I didn't have as long of a leash in high school.
Yeah.
And so went there and, got a great group of friends, people I still keep in touch with. Kind of got that college experience, towing some lines, but really just branching out and meeting people that were outside of the type or culture of people that I grew up around. Because everybody,
Right.
We all had a lot of the same interests growing up, the same backgrounds. And so I think that was the biggest thing about college was it really took me away from this small town
Yeah.
and what I thought
Absolutely.
I knew about the world and brought me into a bigger place. And even then, Missoula was not the Missoula it is now.
No.
It was kind of a cultural shock, but it wasn't insane.
It was
And-
campus in the Stockman. That's all it was.
I was going to say, we had a girl that we went to Geraldine with, it's her husband now, but he was a bouncer at a place called the Elbow Room.
I remember the elbow room. It's a trailer.
It was, they
Double
knocked
wide.
it down. Yep.
Wasn't it a double wide? Yes.
It was, and they would, during Cat Grizz, I think it was Cat Grizz. It was either Cat Grizz or Homecoming. They would cover it in sod.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I've
And
been
so
there.
we've never been afraid of the divey places, but it was fun. I definitely look back and think that God protected me in some ways from some stupid decisions.
Oh yeah.
But
college
yeah.
is a unique experience that it's all those distractions in high school on steroids.
Yeah.
And in this environment where you're like, hey, this is a institution of higher learning, and you're like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's all designed to distract you. So anybody who ever graduates from college, because I never did, I always give them tons of credit, because if you can survive all of the distractions and all of the things, because that's why people live in college towns. There's stuff to do all the time.
Yeah. I almost feel like there were kind of the two acts in college.
Yeah.
Freshman and sophomore, I was just learning rapidly about, what independence looked like and what I could get away with, what I couldn't, how to live on your own, how to cook for yourself, how to do your own laundry, like that kind of stuff. And then when I got into the upper levels of business school and things like that, it was a lot more of working towards kind of actually like focusing on the school portion. And then, of course, when you get towards the end, you're also kind of being faced with what are you going to do after college?
Yeah.
And so
What'd you do?
I initially moved back home, spent some time with my dad. My mom had already passed away. She died of kidney cancer my junior year at college.
Oh, geez.
But moved back, spent a little time with my dad. It was good time. I think he walked a very good line of leaving the door open to me as far as like, you can come back, but I want to see you go out and do things. So it wasn't like I'm just booting you out, like don't ever live here, but it was, kind of encouragement. Like, it's okay to be here, but I know that you should want to do other things.
Yeah.
And so what I kind of applied for jobs that summer and ended up taking my plan was to move to either Seattle, Denver, or Minneapolis, because they're all kind of equidistant from Great Falls, and ended up just applying to a bunch of jobs in all those places and taking the first one that I could get, which going back to what we were saying, I was kind of rudely awakened to how hard it was to find marketing jobs. And the job that I took was billed as a marketing job, of course, because the word marketing is vague. But it ended up being a full commission sales job for an office supply company in Denver. So you would work for a company. It was the warehouse side of Staples called Quill. Every once in a while you'll go in a doctor's office or something, you'll see a clock that is from quill.com. But I would go around to every business in a zip code in Denver. You'd get a zip code, and you had to go to each business at least once and try to introduce yourself and try to get them to buy, discounted office supplies. And it was, in one sense, it was terrible. I hated that job. I hated the awkwardness of walking into somewhere and them knowing you're a salesperson.
Oh yeah.
But again, it was a growing experience. It forced me to just kind of get out of my comfort zone. I mean, that was the least comfortable job that you could pick, as if it's just like, hey, just get a. And it also, for me, moving to a new city, when you would get a zip code, you would spend a couple weeks in that zip code at least. And you really got to know the city that way, like all the side streets. I mean, you were going to everywhere in that zip code. And yeah, it really forced me to grow. I only did it for about 4 months, which was actually a fairly longer career in that. But made some great friends, got forced out of my comfort zone, and it allowed me to kind of settle my feet in a new location. So it was good, and it taught me some things about how to continue to, I guess, interact with people even when you're a salesperson.
Sales jobs, they get vastly underrated, kind of like trade jobs a little bit. And the reason why is, you really have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you got to hustle, and you got to build trust. And your window to do all this stuff, which normally would be like a 3-month-long human interaction, is like this 15-second window where you have to say all the right things, do all the, the whole, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. In sales, it's so true. And it gets really underrated with people. And if you've never done, like you said, if you've never done a trade, and then also if you've never done a sales job, you're missing out, because it teaches you a lot about yourself.
I was going to say, you'd walk into some place that had, it was not uncommon. You were always following somebody that had, the companies tried to recycle someone in maybe every 3 months in a zip code, because there's constantly new businesses getting started, things like that. Right. Or, maybe the business didn't buy from the last person, but they'll buy from you. But you are encountering, in that job, you're encountering people who were promised things by the last person, and you're having to smooth that over. There's really no line of defense behind you.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to go in and kind of answer for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely something that's taught me more about customer service.
Absolutely.
I probably did worse in that job because I felt a certain amount of empathy for the people that I sold to, in the sense of like, I know I'm annoying you.
I get it.
Yeah. And the guys, I've got some friends from Boston who will hopefully watch this episode, but they were so much better at sales because I found that East Coast mentality of like, they just walk in and be like, hey, you want to buy something? And the person would either be yes or no, or might cuss them out, throw them out. but they were just on to the next one. I was in there trying to make friends.
Right.
And I don't think I ever got cussed out, but I also didn't have that hard line for sales. But it was, again, it forced me personally. There was a lot of personal growth as far as you need to go to talk to people and it's uncomfortable and you just need to get over it and figure out how to do this.
You know, it's so true though, because everybody, you know, like let's say you go to the car lot, right? If someone comes up to you, you're annoyed because they came up to you.
Yeah.
Like, just leave me alone. I'm just looking around. But if you go to the car lot and nobody comes up to you, like, does anybody work here? I mean, it's one of those things where it's just
the Home Depot paradox.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta go. You gotta.
I think it's the church paradox because we got people who like going to church and don't want to be walked up to and hi, how are you? And then you get the opposite, or like, why didn't anyone come up and talk to me? It's the same deal.
That's very true.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, it was. I remember one memory that there's quite a few, but one I went to it was the corner of Federal, which is a big street in Denver, and I think it was Federal and Colfax, which is another big street in Denver. And I went in there, and it was like a suit store or something like that. But I went in there, and the guy just looked at me, and he's like, "How's it going, man?" You know, I did my spiel. I had my script, so to speak, that you memorize. And he just looked tired, and he's like, "Man, you're the 9th person that's come in here today." And not from my company, but they had people coming and selling point of sale systems. And
oh yeah. And
I remember that was probably one of the things that took me out of there, for rightly or wrongly, was I was just like, I'm so sorry that you're trying to work a job and I'm the 9th person that's come in and like given you the script and, you know, hey, I just want to come in and introduce myself. Do you have time to take a look at my catalog and all that?
Right.
And it was just, again, it opened my eyes to some of the commerce that was going around. And again, that stuff was not happening in Geraldine, but it was like the bigger city experience. So
absolutely.
Anyways, that being as uncomfortable as it was, that I tried to get out of there as fast as I could and started my own company building websites, which I think I had some talent in doing that, some basic coding experience, and then this was the advent of kind of these websites that you can build, like Squarespace.
WordPress guy?
Not a ton. These were a lot of like the click and drag, like Squarespace.
WYSIWYGs.
Yeah, this was. I remember the one I used was Moonfruit. I mean, there's a million of them, but you know, it showed me that I wanted to be in something where I had a couple of businesses that were interested. This is at a time when a lot of these places still didn't have a website,
right?
And I wanted to have more of that longer term relationship marketing. You know, I was still very marketing gung ho. You know, I want to do this for you and kind of have you as a lifetime kind of retention client. I think maybe that's the other thing that I learned in that the commission job was that I did not want to leave somebody high and dry, like some of the people before me had done. You know, I didn't want to make a bunch of promises to someone and then have someone clean up my dirty work down the road.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted more of like the clientele that was, hey, I want to do this for you forever. Obviously, there's some stability there, but I also just out of a care for wanting them to have that.
You get to know them, and so therefore you can be a little bit anticipatory in what you need to do for them versus having to learn a whole new client and understanding their needs.
The con to that, though, and the only reason I say this is because I did the exact same thing. My business, when I first started mine, was website design as well. So you and I were same kin. The problem is when you get that client, you sign them for a 2-year contract, and then you realize, oh, they're not going to be fun to deal with for the next 2 years.
You know, I had a little bit of that, but really, again, just in my personal growth, I was still learning how to like push myself. You know, it's been that story of you get out of your comfort zone and then you kind of go right back.
Yeah.
And then you go out of your comfort zone and you go right back, and really trying to beat that, the joy of being, I know, like, you know, it's kind of what Jocko Willink has made a career out of, is the freedom of discipline.
Yeah.
And this was still a point in my life where I was more disciplined than I'd been, but still had long ways to go. And so I still wanted a lot of these clients, and I probably would have put up with a lot too.
We do. That's our job.
I wanted things to be easy. I want to get this book of business and then have it all laid out for me. And luckily, again, God didn't allow that to happen. I more or less just kind of scraped by for a couple of years doing that, not really pushing myself, only pushing myself when I had to, which led me to kind of the genesis of where I'm at now, which was I needed to find another job. So I'm looking in marketing. I'm trying to, applying to a bunch of different places, and I don't have enough experience, but, the job wants 5 years experience. No one will give you any experience, kind of that, the paradox. But my diet had changed due to some health stuff from a medication I took in high school. And I was shopping a lot at Whole Foods, trying to figure out, to kind of how to optimize my diet. And so I remember kind of arrogantly thinking like, well, I can always work at Whole Foods, I can always work at the grocery store while I look for the real job. And what was funny about that was when I applied at Whole Foods, this still kind of cracks me up. They were normally not, it wasn't a hard place to apply to. They had a higher standard than some stores, but it wasn't crazy. But just so happened that when I applied to Whole Foods, they were testing out a new interview process where you had to do like 3 interviews to get hired. You had to do a group interview and like a one-on-one. And so I had to go through like 3 or 4 interviews to get a job at this grocery store. And it made me want it more. It also kind of intimidated me that I, had to go through this to get a job that I had kind of thought, I got a college degree, I can work in a grocery store, like all this stuff. And it was just kind of odd, but that got me in the door of working with my hands again and doing customer service type things. And also dealing with people that had been doing this job for a long time and were a lot better than me at kind of the ins and outs of like handling all the tasks in a grocery store. And so it was very humbling in a lot of different degrees. But was able to start in prepared foods and then work into the meat department there. And then it's kind of been in that industry in different ways since. I mean, there's some other steps in there, but that was the transition period between, doing marketing, just trying to, at all costs, stay in that marketing realm, and then moving into kind of my current profession.
So when you're working at Whole Foods, is that where you become a butcher, so to speak? Yeah,
I had I'd been kind of becoming a little bit more interested in finding out, where the food I ate was coming from. I was eating a lot more of kind of like a paleo type diet at that point. And, one of the blessings that I've had is some of these things that I've really, I've thought, hey, that'd be kind of fun to get into the meat department. It wasn't just given to me. Like that was a hard job to get because a lot of the butchers there were older guys. And at that point, Whole Foods did a kind of a cost sharing. Well, it wasn't cost sharing. It was if your department did well at the holidays, you got a bonus.
Okay.
And the meat department, because of the margins and things like that, was one of the consistently bonused areas of the store. So there weren't jobs right off for that. And so I worked in, it was part of kind of like the deli section. Right. And I had to be in that for a while and put up with some of the aspects of the job I didn't like while I waited for a spot to open in the meat department. And then, when that spot finally did open and I was able to go over there, there was kind of their own set of challenges over there. Whether it's the older cutters that, aren't hazing you, but you got to earn their respect. and it's not a fast process, or just kind of learning on the fly. I hadn't really had a lot of experience growing up on a farm. We had someone else slaughter our cows or our ranch. Right. My dad wasn't a huge hunter. Nothing against it. He had nothing against it. Yeah. He was just so busy with farm work, and we had beef in the freezer, so that was a little harder to get excited about shooting a deer. But I kind of had to learn that stuff at an age that most of my friends had been gutting and processing deer since they were 10. Yeah. But yeah, it was, again, the stuff that, especially at that age, that I had to, it was a blessing that I had to, it wasn't just given to me, that I had to kind of prove to myself that I wanted to do it.
So how long did you do that job in Denver?
Was in the meat department for 1.5 years. And at that point, so like most grocery stores, they do box beef. So you don't get carcass beef, you get boxes of ribs and strips and tenderloin and all sorts of things. And so once I got into this department, kind of got my feet set, started to show myself that I could do this, that I could, got more interested in it. I realized pretty quickly that there was kind of an end to what you could learn there. Not that there aren't little things that you can pick up, but you were only going to be able to do boxed things. There were only, you filled the case every day, and once you learned how to cut all that stuff, it never really changed. Right. And so I was looking for anywhere that I could learn to just kind of keep going in that pursuit of knowledge, basically. And what was crazy is at that time, the only thing that I could find was a school, a training program put on by a butcher shop in Brooklyn called Fleischer's. And that was the only place in the United States that I could find that was really set up. And so I applied to that in, this would have been in fall of 2015. And they took 3 people at a time for this. And it was a 12-week course. You had to find your own lodging and pay them for their training program. But you got to work in a processing kind of packing house type thing in Brooklyn, breaking down whole carcasses. And then you also got to work 2 weeks in their retail store in Brooklyn. And so pretty big step up from a guy from Geraldine to go to Brooklyn. But I was excited about it. I applied. Thank God I got in. And so in early 2016, I went to Brooklyn for 12 weeks and got to learn from probably one of the best butchers in the United States. Wow. A guy named Jason Yang. He has a huge Instagram following. He, in addition to being kind of just a super talented butcher, is also a criminal defense lawyer and a jiu-jitsu black belt. Wow. And so this was a guy that, he commanded respect, and he's like a shorter, smaller Asian guy too. And so he just, he was a kind of a legend. But awesome. I got to go over there and do this, and what's both sad and makes me even more appreciative of what I got was they've since closed that program. But before they closed it, it spit out, I can name like 4 or 5, and I'm sure there's more, probably closer to 10 craft butcher shops across the United States that had graduates from that program. So, and it was just, it was awesome to be just thrown into, well, I mean, I volunteered for it, but just day one, you're cutting, and you're just, you're cutting pigs and cutting beef, and they're just giving you more and more all the time. And it was really an opportunity where you have you can push yourself as hard. We're not going to babysit you, like if you want to come here and waste your money, that's fine. But you can push yourself as hard as you want. And luckily we had the other 2 guys in my class, we were all kind of competitive in the right way. And so I'd look over and see Ricardo just going through a pork carcass, and then that would make me want to try to keep up with him. And it was that was a really, really fun time. And it again set me up for what I'm doing now.
What's the hardest thing about butchering? What is the thing that's the most difficult about it?
Well, you've got, and subsequently past Fleischers, I've worked in a few different environments. I worked in a butcher shop in Colorado Springs that was connected to a 5-star restaurant. I worked in a packing house in Colorado Springs. And then I came up and worked at that slaughterhouse in Vaughn Meats for Rick and PJ Cook here in town. For me, this might be kind of a weird answer. I mean, obviously it's physically taxing in a sense. You're picking up heavy things. You're, slaughter is its own thing. You're dealing with a live animal at that point. Also, it is not the clean, you're just dealing with blood and other bodily fluids at that point. I think one of the hardest things that I see, this might be kind of a weird answer, but one of the things I noticed in packing houses was, you're going crazy, you're cutting all this meat, and then more carcasses just show up.
Yeah.
And you're cutting and more carcasses show up. And so I think there's elements of this in trade jobs, but this has probably been one of the most important lessons I've learned is to, you're never gonna, there isn't that thing where you're gonna cut all the meat and just be done. Like
right.
You just have to reach a comfort level of you're doing your job and you find joy in the job, and you work till the clock says you can leave, and you take pride in what you did that day, and then you go back. I mean, there's got to be elements of that in all of our jobs.
Rinse and repeat a little bit.
Yeah, I think going back to the earlier topic of maybe what people are tempted to do with some of the ways that a lot of those tech jobs are marketed online is, you just do all this work up front. Now this system or whatever is just going to make you money. The passive income, the passive income. Right. And certainly there's an element to some things like that, but the promise of passive income definitely speaks to the part of me that has to fight laziness.
Right.
And the idea of like, I could just sit on the couch while I make money. That's probably the hardest part for me, is just being okay with like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. I'm never going to cut all the meat and then just be able to sit back. But I guess for other people, it just might be you're dealing with sharp stuff.
Yeah.
I got a question. I know when I was doing, prep foods and stuff like that, when I was in restaurant stuff, smells started to become more difficult for me. There was a certain point in time where I knew certain smells I didn't like. So in doing butchery, what is the smell you like the least? Like, I want to know that.
Well, there's something, if the meat doesn't cool off fast enough at the slaughterhouse, there's something called bone sour, which is what it is. The part of the knuckle bone will get sour. And yeah, I think the worst smell I've ever smelled going back to the grocery store is if you get a bad turkey. Oh. Poultry is...
Sheesh.
Yeah. Poultry
was where I was
unique.
That's where I was going with that, because poultry was my problem too.
Poultry has a strong smell anyway.
Yes, it does.
Poultry is unique. When it goes bad, it sticks with you for a while. And then of course, in the slaughterhouse, when you're carrying a stomach around I mean, not to get too graphic, but the contents of the stomach don't smell great.
Smell really good. Yeah.
And it's funny. I think a lot of you guys were talking about coming in the shop. We will have at least every couple of weeks a child that's probably 5 or under, whoever, whatever kid it is that week that comes in like, this place smells funny. And I'm around it so much that I probably don't even notice it now. But
absolutely.
But bad poultry, and I haven't had as much experience with seafood. Yeah. But I've heard that bad seafood that sticks with a person too.
Yeah, I can see that. So now I want to talk about one thing, and we're going to take a quick break before we wrap up. But I How many years did you do actually working in the slaughterhouse?
I just did 1 year. So when one of the things that, you know, I guess we all look at our individual stories and we can see, you know, what God has gotten us through, the ways that he's kind of protected us from ourselves, right? And so I moved back up from Denver, from Colorado Springs with my new wife at that point, or my wife, I guess she was a new wife at that point, in 2017. And
She had the new wife smell.
that's right. Yeah. I better not say anything else.
I know. I already went there.
But we came up. I was excited to do something up here in Great Falls, and I could see, like a lot of people can, that there's a huge opportunity for like slaughter up here, because that's one of the problems with our current business, is that it's so hard for us to find a slaughterhouse that has open kill dates and such. And so I, from a business standpoint, identified, hey, I want to start a slaughterhouse. You know, I've got some land out in Geraldine. You know, this is feasible in a sense. The one part that I was missing was I didn't really know anything about slaughtering.
Right.
But so a family friend kind of made a connection between me and Rick Cook out in Vaughn, and man, Rick did me a solid. I just remember, you know, even then just being like, oh, I think I could buy a slaughterhouse and figure it out. And I went and talked to Rick, and he was kind of like, well, you know, have you ever worked in one of these places? And it's like, yeah, I did 2 weeks in Colorado. He's like, how about you just come work for me instead? And so, you know, him protecting me from being stupid enough to think that I could just buy a slaughterhouse and run it was something that I hope I'm paying forward to everybody I meet. But I worked there from January to October, and then they were kind of winding down as a business. And so that coincided with me starting the construction process for our current shop now. And it was a great experience out there. It was hard work. But again, I've been so blessed to be able to learn from people that, like Jason in New York or Rick out in Vaughn, Rick and PJ. I've just been put around people that know what they're doing, you know, that they aren't just all talk. They know what's going on.
They lived it. Yeah. We're going to get to that. So take a quick break right now. Your health journey is as unique as you are. The Peak Great Falls has everything you need for your fitness journey. They are your partner in wellness, with a top-notch facility, an expert staff, and a very welcoming vibe. Locally owned, community driven. Join them today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, one cup and one bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. So, talk to me about, you started to say, well, I started to, do the construction on the place downtown, which is now Central Avenue Meats. So tell me how you came up with this and how you got the whole thing put together. I'm dying to know.
Yeah, just I think one of the things that I identified being in a bigger place like Denver, Colorado Springs, some other bigger places that I was aware of was the resurgence that was happening in downtowns. So, growing up in Great Falls, when I was growing up, the mall was the mecca, and if my mom hadn't been a music teacher and we hadn't gone to the music store in Times Square, I probably wouldn't have come downtown at all, other than like maybe Kaufman's to get a tux around prom time. And that doesn't mean that there weren't good things downtown, but I just didn't know about any of them. All the excitement was on 10th, and you come up from out of town and you're doing the Northwest Bypass, and then you're going to 10th, and then you're heading right back out. But, I guess I thankfully was able to identify this is a place that we want to be, and kind of felt called to be. And so just looked for the right building, the right opportunity. That took a while. I can't really remember exactly a lot of the specifics about how we identified the building, other than I knew I wanted to be on Central.
Right.
Was looking for some particulars as far as like the space I needed, things like that. But, just so many, I guess the phrase dominoes being lined up, but obviously we see purpose in the way that they were lined up. It wasn't an accident. But just getting what I consider to be Sletton's best contractor, general contractor on our project, because a lot of the building started happening right as COVID hit, or right before COVID, I guess, but kind of in that things were slowing down a little bit around that time, and I guess on a broader scale, looking at all the people that were involved in that project and just seeing the quality of work that they did, from the designing at LPW to the construction at Sletton to all the finishes and things like that, I'm going to end up leaving a lot of people out because those people were subbed on. But, and I don't know all the companies that contributed to it, but I really hope the community, the people that were on that project feel a huge sense of pride in what they created. And I almost feel more, less like, hey, look at my shop, and more, look what everybody created. And now I'm lucky enough to get to cut in a place like this and to be in a location like this where I can, we're about at the Christmas stroll.
Yeah.
And that's always a huge night for us. And it's huge because we just get to see so many people. When you're on Central, you get to just really interact with the community in a way that is not always common at other places in town. You got to deal with parking. I understand it.
There's a new mayor though, and he says he's going to make it free 2-hour parking.
I am excited about that. And that's something that Great Falls has to deal with, is when you have a place where people want to be, you're going to have to put up with it a little bit. But I just was so happy and am so happy to see the way that it's come together and to see all the people that feel at home in the shop. And I believe that speaks to the larger purpose of why we're there. And, we're why so many of our customers put up with the hassle of coming downtown and shopping with us, because they're absolutely, you got to put a little effort in to come down there. But,
that used to kind of be the thing. So back in 2005 to 2007, I was a downtown beat cop. That's
really?
That's
Okay.
what I did. And I have this huge close allegiance to all the downtown business owners. From that, I mean, a lot of them are I've made lifelong friends down there. And, I was there when they were really in their struggle years, when there was some drug addicts and transients who were basically trying to take over downtown. And it was very be vigilant, stay after them type of atmosphere for me. But then I made all these lifelong friends, and it was rough. I mean, it was at the height of meth and everything else. And a lot of those stores, even the ones like, let's say like Kaufman's and Dragonfly, which were there at the time. I mean, you could tell they were struggling. They were like, we should be doing a lot better than this, Yeah. And one of the things I think that you got going for you though, is like downtown's starting to boom, and your location was super, super smart. And the reason your location is it's surrounded by everything, and it's not really a hassle to go down there anymore. My wife and I will go down and we'll just start walking down like the 100 block, clear up to, we at least go to Clark and Louis before we turn around.
Yeah.
And so we're hitting, everything. And now there's even more stuff going up further up Central. So I don't think there's really an inconvenience. I think the way you did it was really smart. I mean, your location of what's around you and what's on both sides of you and what I hear is coming, is perfect.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Can I ask you a question now? What was the family dynamic like? What is it with your wife, your kids, making the decisions, making the leap? I mean, as Christians, I lean so heavily on every word my wife tells me, and it always seems like the call in one way or another. So I like to ask two questions. One, where did you meet your wife? And then the second one is, how did that dynamic work with the meat shop?
Sure. No, my wife is Luann. I met her at church, luckily enough. And I say luckily because during the college years and kind of before I went back to church, that kind of, really exercised my faith or found my faith. I tried to meet a lot of girls in a lot of places that weren't church. And, I again was protected from some of those decisions. But yeah, she has been just incredibly supportive of this decision. It's fun. I mean, just even the fact that she gets to, and she'll bring the kids down during, and the kids know all my guys, and they feel at home there. And that's important to me because my son Danny is 4, but I'm already scheming when I can get him in to learn things like that. But
hey, some other people started when they were 6.
Yeah. Where's Don Hicks at?
There you go.
But it's, I don't know. It feels like I don't have to. There's been some bigger time commitments when you're starting something like that, and even the next 2 weeks, as we're talking right now, the Thanksgiving rush, and then into the Christmas stroll, and we're actually just on the start of a new project. We purchased another. Myself and a couple partners purchased Cascade Wholesale Meats, so we're getting ready to expand and hopefully do more processing, hire more guys, increase the amount that we're able to support restaurants in the community. And
what's that going to be called? Is it still going to be out there?
We are going to call it Missouri River Meats.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
Starting in the new year. So,
is it still going to be out there in Cascade?
Well, this is the one that's over by O'Connor Funeral Home.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the actual meat.
Cascade.
Sorry. I'm actually thinking of the one in Cascade because I've been there too.
Sorry, so we're actually going to buy some equipment, I think, from Steve. Well,
are you?
It's like many funny, ironic things in the meat world. There's Cascade Wholesale Meats and Cascade Meats.
Okay.
One in Cascade, one in Great Falls, and both people that own them are named Steve.
That's hilarious.
And so, anyways, we're excited about just the fact that we, my personal crusade is I found a lot of purpose in this trade and learning how to cut meat and, what is described as some people as a lost art. There's many things like that. I don't think that meat cutting in itself is unique to that, but coming to that later in life and kind of having an appreciation for it after being out of things like that for so long, I am just fired up about having people come in and learn. And I want to set up something that's kind of an apprenticeship program like that one I did at Fleischer's, my goal would be to try to pass this on and kind of spread this lesser gospel to people, as many people as I can while we can. And I think that we've had a bunch of people kind of apprentice with us. They might come in and cut with us for a day or come in for a week or something like that. And it's just so much fun to have somebody come in and try something like this that they've never had an opportunity to do before. And yeah, we're excited about this new place to do that as well.
So how many butchers do you have that work?
I have 3 full-time guys right now, and a part-time guy. So I guess 4 guys. And we're hoping to, in this new expansion, to hire 2 or 3 more right off the bat.
And do you train them all?
Typically, at this point, we've trained our own guys for the most part. Now, the 2 of my guys have been cutting actually longer than I have, so I won't take credit for training them, Stanley and Tom. But I have personal connections to both those guys, and so there was kind of that vetting, I guess. But right now, other people that we brought in, so we've had a couple guys kind of rotate through and have had to move or different things like that. So they work with us for a year and a half or something like that. But we've trained our own, especially with kind of the newer guys coming in.
So as for people that are watching this podcast, how does somebody get into this? Like, do you open up like a job for it, or is it kind of word of mouth? Or you just kind of like people come in, hey, I'd like to work for you, and you just kind of do it word of mouth?
So far the latter, but I'm hoping it becomes more of the former.
Okay.
So my goal is still, and there's been conversations with higher ups in the Montana development apprenticeship sector, even some interest from people in the governor's office as far as just what can we do if we have a place that we can train people, what resources can we use to help accomplish that? And so far I've been pretty busy, so I haven't been able to really put a lot of effort into that. It's a passion of mine, but I haven't been able to put full go into it.
Right.
But it's something that I'm trying to strategize even more, and potentially with this expansion, we'll be able to put some more energy behind as well.
That's awesome. And one of the things that I like that you're saying is like, one of the things they say about being in business for yourself is you're not really in business for yourself unless you can leave the business and go do other things. and I can see you like, you're like, okay, I want to go do this other thing, which still ties in, but it's hard because you got to get all those people trained, right? You got to get all those people, because they have to kind of self-sustain what you built, and that's tough.
Yeah. Especially, any of us here, I just have so much more respect for those businesses that have been in business like 40 years or 50 years or 60 years than I ever had before. When I was growing up, it was like, oh, great. That means that this place, I want the new shiny thing. And now I look at those businesses we, talked about like Bory's or some places like this where it's like,
or even the ones downtown like Hoagland's and
Kaufman's
and Farron's.
Yeah.
And they're just like institutions in our community.
And that they've gone through good economies and bad economies. They've gone through sickness and health. They've gone through, they've had to deal with every type of bump in the road that any other businesses have to deal with. And I think that there's an excitement for me to kind of continue to join them. I'm still relatively new. I'm 3.5 years old, but I'm and this is something I got to put up or shut up, I guess, but I want to be one of those community businesses that is able to pass some of those tests. And man, the Great Falls community has come out in full force.
They're super cool, aren't they? People
have gone out of their way to support us. And to anyone watching, that is hugely appreciated. And it's just cool to see. I mean, to know how many people we know by name, we know their kids, we know their story, we can carry on very personal conversations with them. And 4 years ago, I would have walked past that person in the grocery store and not even noticed.
Yeah.
And from a community standpoint, it just makes this place feel safer
It does.
and more fun. I mean,
Way more fun.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your relationship with McCafferty Ranch.
Yeah.
Because you have a really unique relationship.
Yep.
And I'm super excited to hear about that.
Yeah. I love those guys, Joel and Cindy, Megan and Logan. We were introduced to each other through a Great Falls Development Association contact. And in a sense, we've kind of never looked back. You know, when I opened, I wanted to have a very unique product. So I wanted to, I was pretty passionate about the health benefits of 100% grass-fed beef. And also the fact that there weren't a lot of places in town to get that. And so when you talk to people that are on the carnivore diet or stricter paleo diets, they're a little bit more dependent on having that as a source. So I saw some marketing advantages or some competitive advantages there. But if it doesn't taste good, people aren't going to buy it.
Yeah.
And that's where the McCaffertys have stepped in. And what they do is finish the cows on hydroponic sprouts. So they sprout barley in a hydroponic plant out at their ranch in Belt. And it's just incredible. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a steak cooked for me earlier. And now they're doing it with pork too. We just got sprout finished pork from them as well, which, someone can easily correct me, but we believe it might be the only place in the United States that's feeding pork sprouts as far as a finishing fodder. And, again, this is related to not only the quality of the meat, but the health benefits. So that healthier animal, you're raising a healthier animal and you're getting those health benefits transferred to you when you eat that meat.
Absolutely.
And so sustainable, all the buzzwords, sustainable, humane, but also tasty. And that's, we're excited about what they're just producing on an incredible level up there. And if they were outside, I always tell people if they were outside Chicago or outside Denver, they'd be selling their meat there. We're just lucky enough to have them in outside Great Falls.
I've heard about that. I've heard rumors about that. And I want to have them on. I want to have them on the podcast. But I think, Tim, when we do that, we got to go on a field trip and check that place out and get some footage of that.
I love that idea very much.
I keep hearing about it, and I keep hearing really good things about it. And I think it's amazing. And I love your... thanks for the hat, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I love your...
I left mine at home. I hate that. But remember, I got mine before you got yours.
You did.
That's
you
all
did.
that matters.
But I love your support your local rancher thing.
Amen.
I mean, I like... It's kind of weird. I feel like the big meat packers and big corporations have failed our agriculture and our farming communities big time. And one of the things I like about what you're doing is you're saying, okay, fine. I'm just going to fill that gap.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be more people that are going to see that and go, yes. And I would love to see a day when, there's so many, so many people are eating, first of all, they're eating good food that's healthy for them because if they have a healthy body, they have a healthy mind. Yep. And maybe we can stop all this political division and nonsense because, it's manifesting itself because we're unhealthy.
Yep.
We're all a bunch of sick human beings. And I don't mean that I mean that like we got terrible things in our body that's coming out. And, I hope there's a day when that's what it is. And there's more of these butcher shops coming open. And this kind of seems like that's your dream too. And they're doing the right thing and they're putting out quality food. And I like the neighborhood kind of vibe you have going on.
Yeah, I love it.
Where you can go down there and get your food, your neighborhood butcher, and it's just, there's something about that that's really... Well, first of all, it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
But second of all, it's that relationship,
Yeah, again, I would defer to you as far as I didn't know you had that downtown experience.
Oh, yeah.
But how much of a difference that made, the more people that business owners knew each other down there, people knew each other, people are looking out for each other. I remember during the kind of the unrest of 2020 and 2021 that there was a business owners group in case there had been any kind of violent protesting or anything like that. People were looking out for each other's businesses to make sure there wasn't any vandalism. It's just such a tight-knit community, and you can tell that a lot of people understand that there's nothing wrong with going to the grocery store and buying a steak somewhere else or whatever. But if you want to support a local ranching family, and if you want to see your dollars, stay in the community, and you want to maybe spend with a little bit more purpose, that trying to find different ways to support, all manner of local businesses. You have your advertisers, people like that. Again, these are people who are eating and shopping and working in our community. And there's nothing wrong with going out of that, but it's more when you're able to kind of directly support those people, there's a sustainability there.
And there's no reason not to, because your prices are not more than the grocery store.
Yeah.
I've been in there and I've looked at your prices and I've bought stuff there, and it's not more than the grocery store. So the only reason that you wouldn't go there is that you just happen to be in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That's the only reason, out of the convenience. But if you try the steaks, if you eat them, and if you're health conscious like I am, I really care about what I put in my body. So if you're like that, then it makes it totally worth it. And, and then plus, go downtown, maybe go to the Mighty Mo and have a beer, go pick up your meat. Yeah. It's kind of an experience more than it is just just stopping to get groceries. It's not.
It turns into a date day. It's what it does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, again, like you just think like a nice summer day down there, and just how cool it is, what Great Falls has got, and there can absolutely be things added to it. And it's always fun to see the events that come in. And I don't know, I'm just very, very excited and very appreciative to be a part of being in that downtown area where there are concerts being brought in, and there's, get to sit out at the patio at the Mo. And as a whole, you can kind of take it for granted, but you've talked to those people. Every single business owner down there has made kind of a conscious decision to invest in the community.
Yeah.
And to, not like they're not making money or whatever, but, to put up with if there are hassles of being downtown, or, everybody is kind of making these individual choices to be down there. And it's fun to reward those choices. Again, it's fun to shop at those local places where people know your name and they get to know your regular order. And I don't know. I think if anything, if people aren't doing that, I almost feel sorry for them, that they don't know how good that feels. Is when you walk into a place and you're known. Yeah. But how nice that is versus just kind of being another nameless, faceless person somewhere else.
Absolutely.
That if people are feeling alone in today's society, and it's easy to do that digitally, all that, there's an antidote to it. Go be part of this community that wants to have you, really.
Go be part of the society. Yeah. It's funny. You talked about COVID, and you talked about the downtown businesses having an association. And I mean, I vowed, I was sheriff at the time, and I vowed that we weren't going to shut any businesses down. I was like, we're not going to be this is unconstitutional. It's disgusting. There's personal choice. If you don't want to go to a business, don't go. Yeah. It's that easy. Every single business in America had a drive up something where you could drive up or they deliver. DoorDash and all those companies made $1 gajillion during that time. So there was a personal choice. You could choose to go to a business and risk if you were worried about getting ill, or you could stay home. And I used to use those. So I used to know like who the downtown person was that would phone chain everybody. And we get complaints, and I just call those people. One of the great relationships I had too was with the Tavern Association, because the Tavern Association didn't just know the bars, they knew all the restaurants and businesses associated. And we never sent law enforcement down to shut those places down. I just called those people and said, we got a complaint. Can you just make sure we don't get another one? And I really didn't care what they did to do that. Yep. That wasn't my business.
Well, I can say that we all appreciate that because it was a volatile time. A lot of people made some really rash decisions in bigger places. And,
well, they did here too.
Yeah.
And here was the reality of it is more people suffered significant harm from the loss of their businesses than they did from the virus.
Yeah.
And if the virus is going to kill us all anyway, well, it's going to get us all anyway.
Yeah.
And it was this, you know, I mean, I guess I think we all kind of understood when it first happened and we didn't quite know.
Yeah.
But we were all really smart and we figured out really quick. We're like, this isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yet the government kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I've always admired downtown for that, because that's what they'll do is a hard time will come and they'll just all rally together and get a group of people. And they're doing it right now. I know right now that there's downtown businesses that are job sharing. And these are businesses that people would normally construe should be in competition with each other.
Yep.
And they're like, well, we can't get enough employees, so we're just going to job share amongst our businesses to make us all go, because we all want to be successful. And I remember when Rib and Chop House came in, Mike Callahan, who owns the M Bar, is a good friend of mine. And I said, so what do you think? This is gonna hurt your business, the M Bar? And he goes, no, it's gonna make our business go way better. Like we're so happy.
Yep.
And that's the attitude everyone has down there. They're like, bring it, bring more.
Yep.
What new idea does somebody have? Bring them in. And
it's the long view, right?
yeah,
Because short-sighted. I mean, Mike. Quick story about Mike. The very first day we were slated to open, I found out I finally hooked up our credit card processing machine, which, you know, definitely should do that before your first day, your first morning of. But hooked it up and found out that the company that had given us our processing machine had forgotten to give us a cord for it.
oh jeez.
And this is like an hour before we're slated to open. And, you know, we know that people are going to come out of the woodwork. Mike Callahan, who uses the same processing software, takes down one of his terminals. So kind of cripples one of his own terminals to make sure that we're up and running.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
so
That is so cool.
He's been a solid neighbor, to put that very lightly. But
Yeah, he's a solid dude.
I have been so appreciative of the attitude that, and I've learned a lot, you know, because initially it does feel like it's us versus everybody. You know, I think that's easy to feel that way, but you know, that's been a lesson I've learned specifically since being in business in downtown Great Falls is they see another bar comes in, another restaurant that's bringing people down, and those people are going to stay downtown.
Yeah.
And there's just such a lack of jealousy in a great way there.
Well, and one of the great, and I think Mike was the one who told me this, you know, you go to, let's say, Rib and Chop House, or you go to the Wild Hare, you go to something, and they got a waiting line. Well, people are impatient. So they're like, hey, do you just want to go down to another place?
Yeah.
And they go down and go there, and then they have a great time, and no one's they don't care, you know? And but if you have you know, and that's kind of what happened. And I'm going to make this statement, and I mean this. I watched that happen in Bozeman. Bozeman had always had a decent downtown, but then it started to get really good. Now that downtown in Bozeman is crazy.
Yeah.
And I used to say about, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I said we were 20 years away. Now I say we maybe are lucky. If we're 10 years away, we're probably 5.
Wow. Okay.
And because I lived through that in the 90s. And you got to remember, there's 22,000 people lived in Bozeman in the 90s.
Yeah.
And there's 65,000 that live in Great Falls now. And the downtown now is better than what Bozeman had in the 90s in Great Falls. And so I'm like, well, if you just start doing the quick math, and this is the last big of the big 6 that is somewhat affordable to live.
Yeah.
All the rest of them have gone through the roof with real estate. So I think the locals are going to cave in. The Montana locals are going to fall back to Great Falls. And then I still think the out-of-staters are going to come in because it's like, well, we can afford to, you know, live in a really nice house and have a good living and spend money. So I think I used to think it was 10, and I thought that was right. And now I think we're maybe 5 years, and that whole downtown's just we won't even recognize it.
You know, I guess there's that means a ton, because I'm kind of watching this for the first time. You know, I guess coming from a community that's kind of fighting not to. I don't think Geraldine area is going to die, but it's
trying not to expand.
It's definitely gotten smaller since I lived there, you know, and that has to do with the advances in agriculture and and how many acres you really need to be operating to be profitable and things like that. But instead, it is fun to watch an area that's growing.
Yeah.
And I know there's growing pains with that. Again, you get into parking, you get into different things that inconveniences, let's put it that way.
But all the other places have those problems too.
Right. Yeah. We just have to kind of get, it's just it's just kind of a growing pain
Well, the problem is the problem's the internet. You just wish you could break social media sometimes. It's a great tool. It's a great tool, and we all use it for all of our businesses and do what we do. So it's a great tool, but here's the reality. You get those same 20 people that get on there and complain about an issue, but they're noisy and they're just trolls and they spend all day on the internet. Most people don't care that much. I mean, I just go downtown lots of time and play Russian roulette. Sometimes I don't even pay the meter. I just go and do my thing. Hope to God I don't get a ticket. But I'm just the thing that I think that's silly about that is like I go downtown because I'm excited about what's down there.
Yeah,
I want to go down there and see things. I want to go down there and eat the food. I want to go down there and buy steaks. Go just. I'll sometimes come into your place and I don't even buy anything. I just sometimes want to look at it all. I'm like, holy cow, look at all this. It looks great. I mean, just because it is. It's a beautiful place. You've done a really good job of making it welcoming, making people want to come in. I mean, you see it down the street and it's exciting. Just the facade you built on the outside, the way it looks. And you come in and you're like, that's a professional place. And then it's so clean and it's so nice. And so then that's a place you want to buy food from, right?
Hopefully.
I've been to some butcher shops where you're going, so you want me to eat the meat that comes out of here? I've had that happen. But no, that you've done a really good job with that. I think this idea that you have about the internship or mentorship
I love that idea.
Whatever. I mean, that is the greatest idea ever.
Totally.
I mean, I know this. I've got an 18-year-old son. And he's trying to find his way in this world with work. And after this podcast, I'm going to be like, Jake, you need to go look at being a butcher.
I would love to put a knife in his hand. And again, it's just what's the downside is at the very least, you know how to cut up a deer. You don't need, this doesn't have to be, I think there's probably something that I have really yet to see, but it seems like it's a topic around a lot of kids that are coming out of high school now is that pressure to know what you're going to do.
Right.
Even what you talked about with like college of
this
idea that you better decide what career you're going to be in at age 18. And instead
for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your,
Right.
Instead of just, I want to go get some skills and I don't have to support a family right now. I don't have to, this is a time of life where I can actually go and try to try out some things and see if I like them. And I think when we take that pressure off and also kind of empower those kids to go try some stuff out, go realize that there's really no downside to trying a few things. You're going to pick something up everywhere you go. I would love, that is, I think something that I really want to see from my son too, is I want him to go work construction with some of the people I know, learn things that I never learned and wish that I could learn. And now because of, the way that my time is and also just the career that I'm in now, I don't have the ability to go do that anymore, but go learn this while you can, instead of doing what your father did, which was try to spend as much time in front of a TV as he could, I really hope to use that as encouragement. I think that's awesome to be thinking about for your son. Kind of it encourages me to think that way about my son too.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I want, I've always told my son, I've always been like, listen, I got into law enforcement. I got lucky. I got in young and it's worked out for me.
Yep.
And it came through hard work, but I've also got some lucky breaks along the way too. I mean, that's just the way life is. Yep. And, here I am sitting kind of at the best job you can have in law enforcement, literally the absolute, pinnacle of what law enforcement jobs are. And I'm still pretty young and I'm going, wow, this is really cool. I'm really lucky. But I also don't have a trade. And I told my son, I said, listen, and I think your kids look at you sometimes and they get to outcome bias by the way they look at you. Because you're like, you're successful. You put a roof over my head. I'm happy. Yeah. You know, but what they don't understand is like that whole parent kind of anxiety thing. It's like, that's the thing I always worried about was, oh my gosh, what if I lost my job? What if they defund the police, you know, and I lose my career or whatever? I don't have a trade. So that means I'd have to go to somebody like you and beg and be like, hey, will you train me on this skill? Because I need a trade and I need it now because I'm out of a job. And not to say that that's not possible, but the reality of it is then you got to go through your apprenticeship and you got to go through lower wages while you're learning. It's not like you walk in, you know, if someone told you tomorrow, like, oh, hey, you know, this trade pays $50, whatever trade it is, pays $50 an hour. They don't make that much while they're being trained, you know, and sometimes they don't make anything. Sometimes it's well, if you want to learn, kid, come learn. And once you know, I'll start paying you. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing. And like all the kids out there that are watching this or young men or young women or whatever, it doesn't matter. Go get a trade early and then go try other things. And then maybe you can grind away at that trade that you have if that's not what you like. Or maybe you fall in love with the trade and that's what you want to do.
Just go try it. I mean, and that's what I was so resistant to do, you know, between the negative aspects of trade work, you know, I think that something that I didn't hear much about was even from the people that were in the trades was what they liked about it. And I think that that's something that I'm trying to change personally. And I hope that more people talk about because, you know, even my dad, he was good at farming and ranching, but he had a very strange relationship with it. He didn't love it. He went back to our ranch after he got out of the military because my uncle, his brother, was legally blind. And so he needed to kind of help until glasses technology got good enough that my uncle could do more on the ranch. But my dad never loved it, and he didn't try to fake it either. You know, and so he almost kind of pushed me similarly to go to what he thought was the better path, which was kind of the corporate style. But I think that what I'm hoping to hear and do hear a little bit more often now is that the people who are in some of these trade jobs or really any job, like, you know, are you able to see the positives of it? Are you able to find purpose in it? And if so, that, you know, we can tell pretty quickly whether or not you actually have an appreciation for what you do, or if you hate it, then, you know, if I hate cutting meat, then it doesn't really mean a lot if I try to get other people to do that too. You know,
do you ever think you'll, and maybe it already is, but do you ever think you'll get the family ranch and farm up going full speed?
I mean, it's going. So right now we lease out the farmland, lease out the cows to close neighbors. You know, one's my best friend from high school. He's running our cows.
That's awesome.
And then the other is a family farm that neighbors us. And actually that works out really well because we're able to. One of the dynamics in Geraldine is that there are a couple larger out-of-county landowners that are, you know, trying to buy everyone's property basically. And so the people that are still there are, you know, once those tiles are off the board, so to speak, they're not coming back. You know, that land is probably not ever coming back up for sale. And so it's been nice to be able to kind of help them. And, you know, financially it works out nicely, the lease agreements, things like that. But more than anything, I want that place. My attention is fixed on, there's the house I grew up, the house that my dad grew up in, the same house is out there, and it's just full of, you know, I cleaned out a lot of the old furniture and stuff, but I'm down to the bins full of drawings I did in first grade, or, you know, like all the family stuff. And I kind of have to go through that piece by piece. But my goal is just to have a place for my family and friends, and that you can get away to, kind of an escape, almost, you know, kind of a,
that's awesome.
It's maybe not as majestic as some of the famous ranches in Montana, but we got a pretty beautiful view of Square Butte and the high woods. And it's just, again, to I want my kids and close friends, people like that, to be able to go out there and be able to get away from, Great Falls isn't a huge metropolis, but like you said, it's growing.
Oh, it makes a big difference.
There's some action here.
My brother-in-law's got a place up in Valier on the lake, and we went up there. What was Cat Grizz weekend? So last weekend, my wife and I and our kids went up and spent the weekend with them. And yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, he lives in town. It's not like it's out on the. Oh, so nice.
Yeah,
it's so nice just to get away, just to be away, just to, drive the side by side around Valier and go hit the little grocery stores and go do. I mean, that stuff. There's something about that unless you do it, you don't understand. So I think it is getting away. I do. I think it's totally.
Well, and I know if my phone doesn't stop ringing, I know your phone doesn't stop ringing either. No. But yeah, it's. I think. Even the community aspect there, like I still have so many ties to Geraldine. There's so many people that we were able to start selling some of the products from the shop in the grocery store down there for people
that's
who,
awesome.
And not like it's a huge amount, but the idea that people have been so supportive to ask to want to purchase things down there and to make it easier for them to have access to that stuff. It's, I don't know. I've just been blessed in a variety of ways with support for, support from the hometown, support from the community I'm in now. And I do feel I think what is kind of a righteous obligation to I guess steward that support well, to do something with it. And that's where I want to continue to pour back into the community and pass on, give other people a chance to experience this trade, and again, worst comes to worst, you find out you don't like it. Well, that's something that for sure now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And best case scenario, maybe it becomes something that you want to do for a living. And
even trades though that you don't like, if you know how to do this skill, it has value.
Yes.
I mean, I've got friends that know how to do things like, I'll tell them, I'll make a comment about plumbing. They're like, I don't know, I do all my own plumbing. I don't know who any plumbers are. And there's just this thing they picked up, and it, they don't, but the thing about it is they don't, although they have to deal with that issue in life, they don't have to stress about it because, like, I know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the freedom and the value in that is huge, not to be dependent upon other people to, do things, down to cutting your own meat.
And to be able to help people out again, probably one of my personal, the things that kind of gets on my nerves the most is when I see somebody that knows how to do something that won't pass that knowledge on.
Yeah.
And
I call that empire building.
and that's something that I'm really proud of as far as like the guys in my shop is at least kind of our top three guys. These are guys who have kind of fought their way through, meat jobs. And have put up with some of the different personalities and different people that were tougher to work with in a job like this, and have, stayed in those places long enough to really learn.
Right.
Because I do think that there are a lot of people in this industry, like many others, who aren't happy with what they're doing, and they actually kind of push a lot of people out that would otherwise be interested in it. And so I'm just, now that I've got some guys, and me being one of them too, that maybe put up with some personalities that, it had a bigger purpose for being there, and kind of fought through some of the adversity, the personal adversity in those jobs. One of the things I'm excited about is making that road easier for people who are, to kind of shorten that distance.
Absolutely.
And make this industry more accessible. You're still going to have to work. You're still going to have to, there are some shortcuts and some not. But the idea that I found it very fulfilling to pour what I know into other people. And so far down at the shop, that's been rewarded in a big way.
That's awesome.
And we've had people we could trust. I've never had to worry about my crew. And yeah, it's just been a huge blessing to be in downtown Great Falls and to see the growth in our business, but also just see the outpouring from the community. And we're just excited to be there.
Yeah, and in law enforcement, the people that won't share the information and that won't help others grow, they're like old salts. They're just all salty and they've got a negative attitude, and you're just like, come on.
Yep.
And it's just, and especially with the newer generation of people growing up now, they're not tolerant of people like that. Like in our generations, we were tolerant of that. We would tolerate it. We'd be like, yeah, they're older and wiser. They're more respectful. I'm watching now. If you're not giving them the why and you're not explaining to them and teaching them and helping them, they're out.
Yeah.
And you're not keeping them as an employee, and they're out the door.
Yep.
And so that relationship now becomes very mutual.
Yeah.
And it's, you've mentioned things about your dad and about older mentors that you've had during this podcast, and you kind of had to suck it up and figure it out.
Yeah.
And you're appreciative of it now, but the kids today won't do that. They'll just be like, okay, no, if you're not going to teach me, you're going to treat me like that, I'm walking out the door. And I think there's some good to that. I do. I think there's some bad. I think there's some like, hey, you should probably respect your elders more and just shut up and listen. Yeah. I agree with that. But I also think there's also some good to that. So I'm glad that you have that attitude of like, hey, I want to teach you. I want to teach you the right way. And that's awesome. But we'll probably definitely have to have you on again. This was great. Thanks,
Well,
Drew.
this has been awesome.
Great steak too.
Well, again, if you cook it like that, that gets all the credit. I just honored to be here. It's awesome to be in the community with you. Let's put it that way. And I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in Great Falls, and to be a part of it too.
Well, we've got great people.
We do.
It's gonna be amazing. So thanks a lot, Drew.
Hey,
God bless you,
thanks,
man. Take care. Hey everybody, Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast. And we really appreciate the amazing support already that this channel has received. Our social media is blowing up. Everywhere we look, people are liking and clicking and commenting. But what we really need you to do is subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Spotify. That's what drives this channel. That's what's going to keep this channel going forever. Tim and Ben are behind the scenes doing tireless editing, working on this to make this come out the way it does, of this high quality product that it is. So please go in there, click subscribe, click follow, and make sure that this channel sticks around for a long time, because we truly believe it's doing a lot of great things for our community. But there's many, many other people out there who we need to support. So follow and subscribe today. Thank you.